In today's fight news, we start off with the human highlight reel. BMF champion Justin Gaethje, while speaking to MMA media at the press conference for UFC 300, Gaethje had this to say: "I do not look too far ahead. I honestly have no clue what the future holds. I don't usually plan on being alive the day after my fights, so hopefully I'm there on Sunday." Also at the UFC presser, Max Holloway said that he supports Justin Gaethje's proposal of $300,000 fight bonuses for the monumental UFC 300 event, stating, "We always have the fighter meeting. I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to start with $500K so we can start going back and forth." Blessed also had this to say about newly crowned featherweight champion Ilia Topuria. "Everyone keeps asking me what do I think about Topuria. He's questionable." Holloway also clapped back at recent comments made by the new champ, saying, "Calm down, bro. When the time comes, and it happens, it's gonna happen, and I look forward to that. He likes to talk a lot. I like to listen. When it's time, it's time. He's gonna have to see me sooner or later." The former featherweight king says he thinks the UFC purposely avoided a matchup between him and Topuria, stating, "There was a reason why the UFC didn't want him to fight me. They made all these other contenders coming up fight me. Why did Ilia not come up? And then he gets a title shot after beating Josh Emmett, a guy who lost to Yair? MMA math is so confusing sometimes, but it makes no sense to me." While taking questions at the UFC 300 presser, former light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill had nothing but respect for current champion Alex Pereira, saying that he is everything he's hyped up to be, stating, "But watch what I do to him." Hill's UFC 300 main event dance partner, current light heavyweight champion Alex Poatan Pereira, had this to say in regards to Hill recently seeking advice from Poatan rival, former middleweight champion Israel Adesanya. Actually, the best thing he could have done for himself was calling him, because if he had went and sparred with Israel Adesanya, it would be a big frustration for him, especially because I beat him so many times. When asked on his opinion if he thinks Jamal Hill will actually stand in trade with Pereira, former lightweight champion Charles Oliveira had this to say: "Jamal is bluffing for sure. That's the strategy, to take him down. If he trades on the feet, he's getting knocked out." Bronx also had this to say in regards to the current lightweight champion Islam Makhachev. "It's funny because he challenges everyone. The guy from 57 kilograms wins, I'm here. The guy who is the 5th ranked wins, I'm here. When I win, it's like he doesn't see it. It's funny." Oliveira also stated that he feels confident that he'll have a title shot next after an impressive win at the upcoming 300 event, stating, "Dana even said it that I'm next in line. Then I got injured. Then Islam allegedly is injured as well. A lot of people are going to say things. Let's wait. Let's take one thing at a time." Oliveira's UFC 300 opponent, top 5 lightweight contender Arman Tsarukyan, explains why he's recently being throwing jabs at the former champion. "He doesn't talk about me, so I've got to talk about him." Also at the UFC 300 presser, lightweight standout Bobby Green reflects on his most recent loss against Jalen Turner and the notorious late stoppage by the ref. "One thing I didn't prepare for is that the ref could let you get too much damage where you might not come back the same." The UFC fan favorite Bobby Green also had this to say: "Max Holloway is a perfect example of my code. Jump on every opportunity. You see us all the time. The other guys, like Islam, are taking their time with stuff. Guys are taking their time. If you want to be that star, if you want to be that guy, you got to go out there and take those chances, those risks. Sometimes you may come up short, but F it. I did what you MFers were too bleep to do." Also at the press conference, former 3-time Division I NCAA champion Bo Nickel recently defended his spot on the UFC main card at 300, stating, "People will think it's a no-brainer," in regards to recent backlash he's been receiving for his placement on the card. Nichols' UFC 300 opponent, Cody Bundreds, had this to say in regards to being the biggest underdog in UFC history at minus 2,500, stating, "At the end of the day, Bo Nickal has never been hit, so for him to be that kind of a favorite is insane to me." Also stating, "People think he's the second coming of Jesus Christ in MMA, but I just don't see it." Ahead of his UFC 300 matchup against former light heavyweight champion Yuri Prochazka, light heavyweight standout Alexander Rakic had this to say after a lengthy layoff from an injury. "Let's find out who the king of Europe is, and later who the king of the world is." When asked by the media about his recent trash talk towards the former lightweight champion, Rakic had this to say, "Yeah, I said he's a fake samurai because you cannot become a samurai after just reading a book. If you're a samurai, you need to live this for a long time and not just for the last 2-3 years. In response, Prochazka had this to say, "He is talking too much. He don't know me, but he will know me in the cage." The former champ also had this to say, "If I had a real problem with Alexander Rakic, I will go to his home and I will knock to his door." Longtime UFC veteran and veteran of UFC 100, UFC 200, and now the UFC 300 event, Jim Miller was asked during the UFC Media Day if this is going to be his retirement fight. And before the reporter could even finish his sentence, Miller was quick to exclaim, "No." Miller was also asked in what kind of a role does he see himself in the future, say at UFC 400, in which he replied, "Maybe ring card girl?" At the UFC 300 Media Day, former gold medalist and PFL champion Kayla Harrison had this to say in regards to recent comments made by her manager, Ali Abdelaziz, where he said he can see her having the same type of star power as Ronda Rousey, but on steroids. "The goal's not to be a star. The goal's to be UFC champion and be so effing good you can't ignore me." Harrison also stated that she hopes to have an impressive victory at her UFC 300 debut, enough so that she lures former champ and considered women's GOAT of MMA, Amanda Nunes, back into the ring, stating, "I want to fight the best. She's the GOAT, and for a reason." Former champion Holly Holm reacted to recent comments made by her former rival and former champion Ronda Rousey, in which she made several excuses as to why she lost against Holm. "I think it's just hard for her to admit that I was just the better fighter." Ahead of her UFC 300 title shot against current champion Zhang Wang Li, Yan Xiaonan spoke on how China's fans are mostly behind Wei Li, stating, "Still, more people support Wei Li. My people will support me." In other MMA fight news, former middleweight champion Sean Strickland alluded to a matchup between himself and Paulo Costa being a done deal. He stated this on X, "Well, I had a meeting with the UFC and told them that I don't want to be rich. I want to be able to support a family after my career is done. They actually were pretty supportive. Made it happen. Thank you, fans." All right, Costa, you got your wish. Let's do some bleeding. Speaking of the former champ Strickland, he and lightweight contender Bryce Mitchell made a video together on his X account. You can see the video in its entirety at @Strickland MMA on X. And we wrap up with a few fight announcements. At heavyweight, Jailton Almeida taking on Alexander Romanov, booked for UFC 302 per Logan offered. Also, Nathaniel Wood will be taking on Daniel Pineda at a UFC event on July 20th. Joel Alvarez is out of his scheduled UFC Vegas 91 matchup against Mateusz Rebecki.